Hello friends, I'm Skunky with Sacred Oils Controllers, and over the past few years I've taken a deep dive into what makes retro controllers tick. With the help and ideas of my fellow tinkerers and enthusiasts, I've amassed some knowledge that I'd like to share with you. Today we will be covering what to look for when purchasing a used NES 004 controller, also affectionately known as the Brick. Let's dive in. Info. This information can apply to more controller types, but my focus and calling has been the Brick controller for the NES or Nintendo Entertainment System. These methods are most effective when forging for controllers in the wild at your brick and mortar shops, but have proven effective in online purchases as well. With these tips, you can increase your odds of picking a used controller with low mileage and low usage. Let's see what we got. Hooray! Functionality. Alright, so the first thing we want to look for in a controller, if you can, is the level of functionality it has. Of course, we want a controller that just works. So if you go to a brick and mortar store and they have controllers, ask to test it. They may have a setup there that you can test it with, play a game that you know all the buttons do something so you can test it there. And then you'll know if it works for sure. If they tell you, no, if it doesn't work, just bring it back, I mean, that's a hassle. See if you can test it there. Why waste your time and theirs? There's also online sales, which with brick and mortar stores dwindling, you're more likely to be purchasing these online. So sellers will list their lots or single postings, usually as tested working, as is or not tested, or just straight up tested not working or broken or just for parts. Your tested working category, that's going to be a higher price. Of course, you know that the controller just works. If it's as is or not tested, it's usually a lower price, but also usually worth the gamble, especially if you know what to look for, which we'll cover here. There's also the tested not working, which is usually straight up broken in some way or another. So that'll get you the lowest price, but there's a very high chance that they've got major problems with the controllers. Shell condition. The next thing we want to look for is the condition of the physical shell. Inspect the physical condition of it by looking for gashes and things of that nature, cracks, dents. These are all indicative of physical abuse, throwing, stepping on, running over with a vacuum cleaner, the dog ate it, the kid ate it. A surprising amount of these things have bite marks, and I'm pretty sure most of them are from humans. Fun fact. This one here, it's got a lot of dings and gashes in it, so you just may not want that. It's not always indicative of functionality, but the better it's been cared for physically, more likely the less problems it has. So you also want to look for if it has been cleaned or serviced before. Quite bluntly, a lot of retro shops don't know exactly what they're doing. They just swap out the rubbers, wipe it off on the outside, and they're good to go. So one of the indicators of that is this indented area with the Nintendo text. If that's clean around it, but in these grooves and edges, there's still a lot of dirt in there, that means somebody's probably done a, for lack of a better term, half-ass job of just wiping it off. Want to know if somebody's attempted to service it, because sometimes they can do more harm than good. Or it may not have the parts you're looking for inside of it because they've swapped them out. Either way, it depends on what you're looking for. The other thing I look for in shell condition related to it is the screw condition. You want to make sure the heads on the screws are good, they're not rusted and stripped out or caked full of dirt and grime and dust. All right. Inlay sticker. Now, another thing I like to look at in these brick controllers is the inlay sticker. The black matte finished sticker that says Nintendo. The brick controller gives us a telltale sign of how it was used throughout its lifetime in this sticker here. The matte finish of the inlay sticker becomes glossy over time as it comes into contact with the oils in your skin. So the level of gloss and the location that it's in is a great indicator for the level of use the controller has seen, especially since it cannot be restored with a simple cleaning. So a good rule is the less it shines, the less it has been used. Here's an example here. This controller is very shiny around the D-pad as well as the A and the B buttons, as opposed to a controller like this, which is still very much matte the whole way around. Cable condition. Another thing I like to look for with these brick controllers is the condition of the cable, and this will apply to pretty much every wired controller for any console. We want to inspect the cable's physical condition for slices, gashes, things like that. Slices can expose the wires inside and may even cut through the wires themselves. So here's one with electrical tape on it. That's a telltale sign that it has been band-aided, patched, repaired, or that there's damage on the inside of that electrical tape spot. You can see here where it's exposing the wires. We just don't want that. I also look for any tight kinks. If they're stored in a position where the cable's kinked or smashed, that could lead to stressing the wires inside or breakages, things like that. So it might not work from an electronic standpoint due to that. Another thing I look for on the cables is the plug condition. Very important. Sometimes they'll get smashed. They won't fit in your NES properly. And even if you can get them to fit in, this being deformed is not healthy for the port on your NES. Check for any smashes, cuts, chunks missing, things like that. You can look inside here to see if it's all dirty and grimy. Most people don't have the means to easily disassemble the plug-in, so if it's really dirty in there, it's really hard to clean. So yeah, cable, very important. Cable finish. So another thing I look for is the cable finish, or the finish on the cable, how the cable looks. I separated this section to emphasize the significance of it. Aside from the obvious slices, kinks, plug condition, etc., the cable finish tells a story of the conditions it has been stored in for all these years. These controllers are 30 plus years old at this point. I think we're reaching 40 here soon. So a cable with a darker color and a shiny finish I feel is best. If the cable looks dry and tough, there's a really good chance that the rubber membranes inside the controller underneath the buttons are also dry and tough and prone to ripping as well. I suspect that this has to do with mainly what type of humidity levels the controller's been stored in, but not quite sure on that. Either way, what I look for is a nice, glossy, not wet, but glossy finish on the cable. It needs to be able to move around generally freely and not be crunchy, dry and crunchy. Like if you see a cable like this one, you can see it looks a little dusty, but a lot of times they're not exactly just dusty. They're really dry. Like it's taken a lot of the moisture out of that cable over the years. They're stiff, they're crunchy. That's another thing I do not want in a controller. Investigate. So with all this information, we're going to pick out two controllers that were sort of on opposite ends of the spectrum for what we're looking for. So we're going to open them up and compare them against each other and kind of see what's inside. Let's get to it. So here we have our good controller that has no shine on the inlay sticker. It's very clean looking, but it doesn't look like it has been cleaned. It just looks naturally clean. The cable's shiny, it's movable. Screws are good. So this is our good one. And this is the one we identified as bad. The cable's a little dry. Plug actually looks really good on this plug condition, but screws aren't the greatest. It's got some dirt caked in places, and the biggest one, again, is the shine on the inlay sticker, which indicates that it has been used heavily in most cases. We're going to flip these over, we're going to crack them open, we're going to compare parts inside. So as you can see, this one inside, super, super clean. Not a speck of dirt in there. Looks amazing. This one here, nasty. Just nasty. There's actually a pile of dust in there, which means there may have been insects in this one. I don't know. It is pretty nasty, and I want to wash my hands right now. But anyways, you can see all that in there. Nasty dirt and things. I'm gonna pull this PCB off and hope we don't find anything too crazy. Ugh. I don't think I want to touch this thing anymore. But I will. So this this right here is the rubber from that controller that we deemed as bad. You can also see that it is clearly ripped here. And look, it just falls right off. Just nasty. Ugh. You can also note the wear of a PCB by this divot that gets worn in the little copper circle here. If there's a divot in there. This one is a combination of used and nasty. Just nasty. So we'll go to this clean one here. The one we identified as good. We'll take the PCB out, flip over the PCB, and you can see there's no copper divot worn in the center there. Very low hours on the PCB. Inside looks pristine. There's no black carbon smeared everywhere. Buttons are super clean underneath. This is one of the best condition controllers I've ever seen. I picked this myself off of eBay. I think I paid $15 plus 5 shipping because I was confident that this would be good inside when I opened it up, and it was. Now, with the information you have from this video, hopefully you can pick out controllers that are really good condition.